to another episode of Relative Pitch. I'm Anthony Morris, joined by my co-host Lauren Green and Michael Brown. So y'all, how has y'all's week been this week? It's been a crazy week. How's it been for y'all?
Well, I busted my lip pretty bad on Monday. So I've been having to take time off the horn, which I hate, and starting to play the trumpet again the past couple of days, which has been awful. I sound like a middle schooler, which is leading to some future projects. But I also found this album, vinyl, that I'm going to send to Anthony. It's his favorite vinyl ever. It's all the Sousa marches played by the Marine Band and the Royal Navy Band. I'm going to hand deliver it to him when I go home this summer.
You're wrong for that. You're wrong for that. We know
don't
Anthony loved those marches. He loves those marches.
On the contrary, actually, marches are not my favorite thing. Like I would listen to anything else besides a march. I think they're so bland. I think they all sound very similar. In just that march style, like it's not me. I'm sorry. If you want to disagree, we can disagree. That's just it.
But isn't this a marching band thing or like
Morris? Stop.
Oh, wait, isn't this something? But no, I mean, my week, besides just a lot of it's that point of the semester and like just the year in general, where I feel like teachers, educators, everyone, were just kind of, it's a lot at one time, I think. And it doesn't help when we have a mass shooting every other week in the country. Okay, I'm over it. It's getting to the point where, I mean, I am shocked every time it happens, but I feel like we're getting so used to it, which is not something that you want to be used to, is a mass shooting happening every other weekend. It's crazy. It's like, I saw a post that someone was like, the universe said, y'all can go out a little bit since COVID's lifting up and y'all choose to go do mass shootings. Like, it's just like when you get recess and then someone immediately ruins it. Like just for like throwing a rock or something, like, and this is nothing. I mean, the Boulder, Colorado shooting, first of all, prayers to the family and the people in the lives who lost any of the victims. That was such an unfortunate incident. It was disgusting. It was evil, sickening. I think it was 10 people, including a few workers. I think there was a police officer also in the mix. It's just so unfortunate. And it's just crazy. The fact that these things are just constantly happening, and then it's like, hey, well, maybe we should do something on gun control. Then it's all like, oh, well, it's not the guns, it's the people. And it's like, okay, but then the people are the ones with the guns. So you have to understand that, like, listen, I'm not against, like, all my family, the men in my family had guns growing up. They never scared me because I knew they weren't going to shoot me. Okay. But it's becoming a problem when certain people, if we want to say the people who are doing these things have mental illnesses and other things that happen, we should probably screen better the people who are getting access to these weapons if we want to use that motive. And like, I mean, what did you guys think? I know Anthony has people who's out in Boulder.
Yeah. So I have some friends out in Boulder that go to the University of Colorado at Boulder, and just making sure that they were okay. Like, it was very weird. So, when something happens like that, Facebook has the automatic thing where it says, mark if you're safe.
Yep.
And one of my friends, he marked that he was safe. And then I had another friend who, Melinda Mason, she went to KSU. She said like that grocery store is a grocery store that I frequent at. That's where I, get my groceries and stuff like that. So knowing that, even though it was, on that side of the country, and I live here in Florida on the East Coast, to know that it was just that close to somebody that I personally know and personally cherish, it is just very upsetting. But like you said, Lauren, it has become now that news like this, oh, we hear the week and then next week it's something new. And it's become like that. I mean, I will always go back to, at the beginning of the year, the Nashville bombing. We heard about it barely for a day. And then do we know, is Nashville back? Like, what's going on? What is, being done to prevent any of this from happening? Also, when y'all hear this 2 weeks ago with the shooting in Atlanta. Like we have just been, I guess this generation has now just been so immune to all of this going on. And it's very disgusting because, first of all, this is not the norm. This is not what we want it to be. And it's just disgusting. It's disgusting. We need reform. And for the people who are like, they're taking our guns, well, maybe the people who are saying that, you need to get them taken away because you obviously have been caring about your lives very unresponsibly. And I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of hearing stuff like this every single week.
Yeah. Little facts. Since 2000, there has been school shootings in 43 out of the 50 states.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, school shootings, you know, and that whole, I remember whenever, I forgot which one happened, which is sad that I'm like, which one was it? And there was a possibility y'all had an active shooter at the school you were currently at, Michael, right? And I remember that shaking you like a lot. And it's so real that these kids are now aware that at any point someone can just walk in and choose violence, you know?
I would never forget. I think I was 10 or 11. And this is when the like it might not be the biggest shooting, but it was the biggest shooting to me because I was at the age to realize. But it was the shooting at Virginia Tech, and I remember watching on CNN where one of the girls who actually lived, she was like, "We were all scared, and I had to lay down with dead bodies so that I would not die. So I had to pretend as I was dead." And I remember at 10, 11 watching this and just being like, is this something I'm gonna have to go through? Like it just shootings and especially at public places like grocery stores. Why are you uh really here in a place where I'm just here to get groceries? Why are you coming and bothering everybody with this? Like why? And to kill all of those people, that it is just sad.
It's just like evil.
Very evil. Very, very evil. And also, I will have to bring it to you. And if you have a problem with what I'm about to say, then that's on you. I'm not here to argue with you. So the person, to my knowledge, was taken, very loosely, not treated as if he just killed 10 people or he just shot up a whole grocery store. He got treated way nicely than any of the unarmed Black and people of color that have been shot, gunned down, and killed.
That was a huge thing that came from that. The fact that someone, you can get pulled, like an African American, can get pulled over, for a general traffic stop and with no weapon in the car and end up murdered. And then someone who literally went in and shot up an entire grocery store is somehow still alive. Now, I'm not saying that they deserve to die, but when you take someone else's life, you are basically saying you do not understand and like the value of life. Like you are taking that away from somebody. And yeah, just if you don't see a problem with how the system is, then there's nothing else at this point anyone can say to you to make you, it's just ignorant. It's blatant ignorance, yes, at this point. Michael, did you have something to say earlier?
This is just quick research, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 mass shootings last year around. And then this year it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
In 2021?
Yes. Jesus Christ. And mass shootings are characterized by 3+ being wounded and shot at one location by one person.
And I think we briefly brought back up the incident that happened in Atlanta I think it may have been over about 2 weeks now, that specifically took the lives. I think it was 8 people, 6 African American or 6 Asian Americans, women who were murdered in this incident. And a lot of people, if you've been seeing, have been posting a lot of things in solidarity, like Stop Asian Hate, and it's not even just people, it's organizations who are also doing it. So the Chicago Symphony, I have to say shout out to the Chicago Symphony, first of all. because they put up a post in solidarity with the Asian American community, just, saying like, we reject the hate and violence of all forms. We stand in support with the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, a statement just to show solidarity. And then, of course, I have to go look at the comments because I know how these things go. Okay. And there was we'll call her Karen, in the comments section, who said, and I quote, "Stick with music if you really care to be musicians. Are you so convinced that there is racism and that it needs to be condemned? Are you willing and able to do without white patrons or donors?" Let's just take just a brief amount of time to unpack what this woman just insinuated. First of all, she insinuated that racism wasn't real. Okay. That's number one. You don't even have to ask me what race this woman is. Just go ahead and guesstimate. Use common knowledge. She asked, what'd you say?
A simple Karen.
A simple Karen. That's why that is her name. And yeah, so questioning whether racism exists or not. All right, that's a problem. And that it needs to be condemned. So not only is she asking, is racism a thing, but she's asking, if it is a thing, do we really have to condemn racism? Okay. And then saying that by showing solidarity with these communities who are being attacked, you are threatening the possibility of your white patrons coming to support you. Okay. Now, she may not be trying to speak for all, and I know that not all the white patrons of the Chicago Symphony believe this, but that's a problem that not only she thinks this, but she said it with her whole chest on this Facebook comment and didn't take it down. She is proud of what she said. This is a problem, okay? And
one thing, how many people liked that comment?
Only one, surprisingly. And about 12 people liked the comment, that the clap back at her, that basically was saying the CSO, I'm sure the CSO will be fine without you. And I'm sure they don't want patrons of your kind, in their halls, which is true. Music is for all. Music, and this whole idea that, oh, everyone tries to make everything political. It is. I'll tell you why. Because let's go back. And we had a whole episode on this, and we've talked about this before, how a lot of times the pieces that we know and love were in response to what was going on politically during the time. So inherently, it is political. It is about human life. It's about life in general. Politics affect that life. And so if you don't understand why an organization that preaches humanity, humility, arts, and everything that has to do with just morals and being a human in general wouldn't want to post something in solidarity with the community they see being targeted with hate crimes, then you go back under the rock you came from, because there's nothing else anyone could possibly say. I'm not here to educate you. Go figure it out on your own. Honestly, at this point, it's not even that you can't find it. You don't want to. They don't want to understand why it's okay to say stop Asian hate, why it's okay to say Black Lives Matter, trans lives matter, all these things, like we stand with them in solidarity, pride, all this. It's because it's not focused on them. I'm sick of it.
Mm-hmm. And I also think, like, what are you trying to say? What you're trying to say is that racism is not a thing. It should not be condemned. And also, you need to make it comfortable for me to come see you. First of all, no, live in your uncomfortable living, because this is the world we live in. Number two,
you already know what I'm about to say. Say it. I'm not here to make you comfortable.
To make you comfortable. Dr. William Lake. We will always say that. That's our motto. And the thing is, like, also, when you come and see these performances, last time I checked, the people who are performing for you, that you just paid your money and you are paying our checks, we are not all crystal white, ma'am.
Aren't.
So let me check you at the door. Guess what? If us people of color was not there to perform, you would have an orchestra to come and see. So please go back to where you came from. If you want to listen to this type of music and you want to listen to by yourself, guess what? There's something called iTunes, there's Spotify, there's all this. Guess what? Stop. We will be fine without you. And actually, not just you, but your kind of people who think like this, we will be way better without you. So please leave. I would not want you in my audience as a conductor if you feel that way. And I would say that wholeheartedly from my heart and then to yours. I don't want you. Please, the usher will see you out. Bye-bye.
White gloves on, open the
Right.
door.
Ma'am, this way. This way. Two fingers this way.
And you know, something else, like we're all again from Georgia. It seems like Georgia has been a topic of hot discussion since the elections that happened in November. But now we're the hot topic for another unfortunate incident. Okay, so
March
you
has not
know,
been good for Georgia. March has not
Governor Brian Kemp, or we'll say alleged Governor
Mm.
Brian Kemp, signed SB 202, which, you know, it was a voting bill that basically puts a lot of limitations on voting, has to do with mail-in ballots and a lot of things. One of the main thing I want to really highlight from this bill is the fact that now it is illegal to give water and whatever other materials to people standing in line to vote. That means these services who come out, who they're like, yeah, we want to really support those people who are standing in line for hours and hours because there's voter suppression in Georgia, boom, period. And so these organizations who come out and say, we're going to stand in solidarity with these people, we're going to give them food, we're going to give them water, anything they need to be able to stand there and feel comfortable in order to, you know, use their right to vote, which is every American's privilege. No, that's not a privilege. It's every American's right. Excuse me. It is their right to vote. And it's already a disgusting amount of voter suppression going on in Georgia. And now they're making it harder. They're mad that they lost those senator seats, and they're trying to do everything in their power to stay in power. And I mean, did y'all see when that came out? It was all over Twitter, you know, and you know, when stuff hits Twitter, it's viral and we're trending, you know. And I mean, it's just, and we know that the communities they were targeting with this bill, right? Mm-hmm. And especially minority voter suppression is a huge problem in Georgia. It's a huge problem. And you know why it's minority suppression that they want to do, right? We know who typically votes one way, who typically votes another way. So it's all just any way they can legally, I'll do this legally, because it's really not, but anyway, they legally can affect voting in the matter that, again, they stay in power, they will. I just think it's sickening. It's getting to the point where it's not even like, they're not even trying to be democratic anymore. You know, it's whatever it takes for them to win. So yeah, I just, that's all I have to say about it.
I remember when this stuff started coming out, and I just called Anthony. I was like, okay, so what is this? Like, what's going on? Because I saw it on the social media and stuff. I just don't understand. I'm just baffled by how someone was able to pass this and why they would pass it. It's awful. It's the reason we suck.
Well, we all know why they
right.
pass it. And as this has been called the modern day Jim Crow 2.0.
Modern day Jim Crow, right.
And that is because you are trying to take rights away from minority people, especially Black people. It is very targeted. And as a result of this, a Black representative actually went to the doors of the alleged governor to really represent her constituents, and was met with police getting arrested for knocking on the door to tell the governor, the public needs to know exactly why you were doing this. That is what she was wanting the governor to do. But of course, the police was called. But let me just say this. So you mean a little state of Georgia are knocking on the door. Now she's met with 5-6 police officers. Where was these police officers in the Capitol?
Someone put a comparison photo of the representative being like dragged out, you know, for knocking on a door, which her
dragged out of her office.
Right.
Her
that was
office,
her place that she was supposed to be in.
Yes.
And versus people breaking in to government property during the Capitol riot.
And a big government, okay? State government.
Federal. Right.
Federal.
Okay. So you just can't, there's nothing you can say to justify the difference between what happened that day at the Capitol and how those people were able to walk away and just go home versus this representative being taken away for actually doing what she was trying to do for her constituents. That, yeah, messed up. It's evil. It's so clear. And if you can't see it, you're blind. I don't have anything else to say. I can't help you. At this point, I'm over it. But anyway, y'all, hopefully better days are coming ahead, and we'll just see what happens after that. So today we want to actually wrap up our Wagnerism book club series. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe, y'all, we're at the end of this. Now I want to say thank you to everybody who has been on this journey with us, because we know it's been a long one. But it is something that, we have been able to pull a lot of discussion topics from. I've learned a lot of things, and we'll do a wrap up at the end, just kind of discussing all this. But I will start with my portion, which is chapter 14. So chapter 14, the title is Ride of the Valkyries, film from the birth of a nation to apocalypse now. Okay, so that already scares me a little bit, because anytime someone brings up birth of a nation, I get a little nervous. Anytime in history, like in history classes, when we talked about it, it made me nervous. It made me a little queasy. So first of all, just to give a summary of the chapter before we go into it, the chapter was really about Wagner's role and presence in the film industry even after his death. So how his artistic theatrics that he did during his time really translated over to film, and all the nuances and odes to Wagner that were in film. They kind of discussed that very thoroughly. I'm really going to mainly focus on the birth of a nation and apocalypse now, since those are the ones that he puts in the title of it. So first of all, the beginning of the chapter just starts right with birth of a nation, as you would assume. And so, this is D.W. Griffith's 1950 film, which was called The Most Amazing Motion Picture Ever Made. Okay. And the eighth wonder of the world. These are quotes. And we know who was I know there was a president who showed this at the White House.
It was Woodrow Wilson.
Well, Woodrow Wilson, thank you. Showed this film at the White House. How would we see that if that happened in modern day context? That's basically, if you show that film, you're saying, yeah, this is something that should be looked at. This is something that should be viewed.
Can we just give a little bit of a backstory of what, in case you don't know Birth of a Nation, it was a movie that came out in 1915. It was looked at as being the rising of the KKK, because it was, I actually think it was a city. Was it a city in Georgia? It was a southern city that was taken over by African Americans, and the Klan, riding on horses, come and try to free the white enslaved people from the African American rule of the city.
White enslaved people. Now that's something right there.
Yes, and so that is what it's talking about, the birth of that nation of white supreme white rule. And so that's a little bit of the backstory of that movie. And that is what is seen as the pivotal moment for the resurgence and the true creation of modern day, the Ku Klux Klan.
And I will say as well, I watched the movie Black Klansman, that I think that came out before the pandemic, but I watched that recently over my spring break. And it was funny because, not funny, but there was just the ritual scene of, they were inducting new members of the Klan into the organization. And after they went through the ritual, they had to watch Birth of a Nation. Okay. And it was sickening, even though, this is theater and they were doing it for dramatic impact, but the reactions they had to what was happening on screen, and it was sick, because you knew this is how those people thought during those times. Okay. And it was messed up. And so anyway, thank you, Anthony, for that background. Just for anyone who didn't go through US history and learn that, that's everything that's about. So before we get more into the chapter, first of all, Wagner was used a lot in film himself as a leitmotif. Right. We talked a little bit at the beginning how there were a lot of leitmotifs you could find within Wagner's works, like the sword or the Valkyries. Like we knew if we heard something, oh, that meant this, you know. And leitmotifs are something that are used throughout a lot of film scoring. You know, through Star Wars, you always know when Leia's about to come on, Sahan's going to come on. You can tell by that sound, like, ooh, I know what they're insinuating here, right? And so it was just thought now that Wagner himself is being used as a leitmotif. Now, depending on what film you watched, it could have been a good thing, it could have been a bad thing, okay? And so one thing I want to ask, because this is an interesting concept, do you believe Wagner would have been into film scoring if he were alive during like the time that film was becoming a thing? And what movies would you think he would have written for? Like what genres of movies would he have written for?
No.
No. Oh, that's interesting.
Because he didn't like, I don't know, because the way he writes music is different from how we write film scores. Because how John Williams writes it is he uses leitmotifs.
Right.
Wagner wrote music, and the scholars
we added the leitmotif.
The leitmotifs.
Yes.
He wrote the music as he heard it, and we, because sometimes we like to break stuff down, which is okay. We're like, that means this. But in his head, it was all boom. And so I think he could have done music, but I don't think it would have been as popular as other people. And I feel like just opera was his thing.
Yeah.
I would have to say no as well, because I think he would have looked down on film music, to be honest.
Yep.
He just comes off as a person like that. I was just like, and opera music would have been like his thing in doing operas. But we all know that opera really had a big influence on movies anyway. So I feel like just how it happened naturally, his music got taken into movies. So
right. Yeah, no, I have to say I agree with that. And I think this idea of the question of whether or not he would have been into film scoring just came from the idea of how amazing the productions he did put on were. And people thought that he was way ahead of his time in terms of like all the theatrics he would use. And, it wasn't it was something I'm like, yeah, I can see why you would think that. But I think people underestimate how snobby Wagner was and how any other art form or anything modern art form, I think he would have saw it as not pure enough, or it wasn't just for the music. And I think that's the whole main thing. And Michael said it really well with the whole leitmotif. He didn't think about it that way. He was like, I wrote the music. That's it, and we have to put something, we have to categorize everything into a very specific box these days. And no, I don't think he would have gone for it either. I absolutely agree. And so the next thing, now the idea of using Wagner a lot within these film settings, it's because I think, like someone said, the influence that Wagner had, of course, people are going to use that, the influence of opera onto film scoring. There was a quote that I want to read. It was by an American critic, W. Stephen Bush. He says, every man or woman in charge of the music of a moving picture theater is consciously or unconsciously a disciple or follower of Richard Wagner. So I'm glad you made that face, Michael. So basically, this guy's saying everybody who does film scoring follows or is a worshiper of Wagner. What do you think that this is limiting the art form of film scoring? And is this a monopoly? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Like, how do you feel about that statement?
I think it's stupid. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, no.
It's really stupid. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it was a very stupid, shallow, like one very tunnel visioned thing to say.
I mean, because also they're different kinds of composers. They're just different, and one's better than the other.
If we were all the same, it would be very boring.
But no.
Yeah, I think that Wagner may influence some film composers, but to say that as a general term that every single one is by far a worship of a Wagner? I don't think so. And especially nowadays, film composers like I just watched the new movie or the new cut of Justice League just came
Oh,
out,
the Zack Snyder cut.
the
Yeah.
Snyder version, and the composers with Hans Zimmer, I think. His name is Frank. I can't believe I forgot his name, but like he is way more electronic based, and like you could tell it, and like I'm pretty sure he knows who Wagner is, and I'm pretty sure he of course I've played his music and everything, but to say that he is a worship of Wagner, I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can say
Right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, things influence things that influence things that influence things, right? That's just kind of how the world goes. But to say, like, oh, yeah, everybody who does this one thing was influenced because of this one person, like, I don't know about that. Or they were, like they said, a disciple or follower of said person. I don't buy it. And this goes back into the whole hero or just putting someone up on a pedestal that is like unreachable. It's like it's reachable. You don't have to, we need to put these people back down to the point where they're like, there's still a human. Other humans can come who can influence a mass of people as well, and not everyone is connected to this one person. Yeah, I thought it was absurd, and I had to read it because I was like, I knew that you would think the same thing about it as well. So now going to this Apocalypse Now, on page 604 is kind of where I drew this from. And so in Apocalypse Now, I think this film came out in 1979. I think it was written in 1969, but it came out, it was released in 1979. And they used Ride of the Valkyrie during a helicopter mission, like an operation. And in this passage, it talks about how the American troops force used psychological warfare in Vietnam by something called no-touch torture, which is like blasting a bunch of loud music to like demoralize and all these things to the enemy. And the script, and I'll read it, there's a snippet of it here on page 604. So one guy, I was Carnage to Willard, apparently, says, we'll come in low out of the rising sun. We'll put on the music about a mile out, all right? So they're in helicopters blasting the music. They're going in, right? Willard then says, music? Carnage says, yeah, I use Wagner. Scares H out of the slopes. The boys love it. Okay. So it talks about, they literally use Wagner's music specifically during this, American, attack, all the war that's happening in Vietnam and everything. And this, something that I did like that they included in here is that this could have been seen as, a critique of American hubris or pride, but the visual impact, how we like visual effects, like, oh, cool. So it makes anything you put in a certain light look very heroic, and you have to push past all the visual effects and the glorification used to actually see the message behind it. But the visual impact, especially during this time, made it look as if it was something worth achieving, something that was really glorified. They were using the glorification of this. And honestly, the term military fetish object was used as well in that, which is, I know exactly how he was what he meant by that. Something I want to ask, is romanticizing war dangerous? And do you think America is guilty of this?
Oh, definitely. And I will say I fall I have fallen prey for it. Because not so much war movies, but like war plot lines like Call of Duty and like Battlefield. Like those are the two games, that those two and Grand Theft Auto, those are the three video games you will ever see me play. And I have fallen prey for the war themes. Um, and it's weird because my mom, she is a soldier. She was in Desert Storm, and I think growing up, that's just like something that we have now become accustomed to, is things like that. However, I cannot watch a war movie.
Mm.
I tried Saving Private Ryan, and I'll cut this off right now. I think I watched Zero Dark 30, but I
Oh,
fell asleep in the middle of that. So like I cannot watch it, but I definitely can play it. But America is definitely like they love to put themselves as we are the winner. We're doing this because it's the best thing for everybody. And it's like, no, you don't know that. And so definitely America is definitely guilty for that.
I love war movies like Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, Black Hawk Down, The Hurt Locker, American Sniper, Patton, War. Do I need to continue? Like, there's
First
so
off, you just
many.
that American Sniper H no. Okay. No. I knew it's
I
just
love that one. It kind of scared me, but I loved it.
no. I
It kind
remember everybody was like, oh, such a hero. He's a killer.
of
We don't like to say it, but that's what we're saying. And I'm like,
Now, if you want to see a really good one, The Patriot. Ah, love killing.
Also, this beats into that American pride where, oh, this person is a hero because they went in and killed all these people. And then there's some war movies where we found out that these people really just had a king for killing, and they went and killed the opposite, the bad people.
Right.
You done killed women, children that had nothing to do with it, but now you're looked at as the hero.
Mm-mm.
So that's a whole different subject, but that's none of my business.
A really good one, by the way, this really good is Active Valor.
We're not watching it.
It's great.
I don't think we're watching
He
it.
said he speaks for like us and our viewers. Like we're not gonna watch it.
No, we're not watching it.
No, but I mean, check it out. If you're into history, war, and all that stuff, do it. I guess
Historical. It's just really nice to watch.
I'll put my hand out to you. But and then wrapping up this chapter, just the last. I want to just read an excerpt from like the last paragraph of it. So I'll start around. In this book, The Ministry of Illusion, this author writes, contemporary American media culture has more than a superficial or vicarious relationship with the Third Reich's society of spectacle. Nothing in film history demonstrates the idea as vividly as Apocalypse Now, where the German will to power gives way to God bless America imperialism. I had to reread that to see exactly what he was saying. And the question I got out of it for you guys is, do you agree with this notion that certain aspects of modern American society reflect the ideals of the Third Reich? And if so, in what ways?
I think so. I mean, that imperialistic view, trying to create, especially now, trying to create that unified world, a world that all fits that line. I definitely think America definitely takes from that. I mean, why are we in everybody else's country? Like, have you ever thought about that? Have you ever looked at how many bases we have besides the United States? We're in legit almost every single country. But does any other country have a base in the US?
Oh gosh, they would never allow that.
Exactly.
They would never
So, like
the embassy, I guess, but even that.
And even then, they are looked at real scrutinized. Like
absolutely.
So,
I mean, what I got from that is the whole nationalism thing. All right.
Absolutely.
Like that's the main thing that keeps coming up with like Wagnerism, like, oh, I am Germany and all this stuff. And then when you do that, you try to create an ideal, like who is German, who is American. And it's a very specific image of who they want to say is the right American citizen.
When I was growing up in good old little middle Georgia, I heard from many of them country boys, I'm American. What does that mean? Also, American, like there's not South America as well. Like, what you trying to say? What is American? White in country? Is that what you trying to say? Because I'm sorry. And you may, especially if we want to include all of the Americas, you is one little portion. Do not play games. Do not play games. So please correct yourself. What you mean is I'm white.
White American, right? If we got to say we're African American, you are white American. Okay, that's very, because you're not Native Americans are the real ones who this area belongs to. Okay, I can say a lot about that because I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and there's a lot of that going on. And I think we sometimes forget who really this land is native to. Everybody else, we're immigrants or we were brought over on a boat. Okay, that's the only way we got over here.
Anglo-Saxon.
Right. I mean, Michael, how do you think about that? That was something I saw you go like, you had a reaction to.
Think about, I was researching how many military bases are outside the US. That was what I was doing, because I was like, oh, how many are there? There's a lot, and we're in 70 countries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that proves my point. We're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Anthony said, and honestly, I could see it. Let me reread the question because I was so wrapped up in this.
I know. So basically, it's like, do you agree? Because what this person was saying was that there are similarities between, he said, contemporary like American media and the ideas of the Third Reich. And it's something that you can see a lot, and people have done this. There have been a lot of comparisons between the past administration and how Hitler gained power. That's all I'm going to say.
You can see the similarities, and especially the quote unquote proudness.
Pride, nationalistic pride.
Yeah, because I mean, there used to be a certain amount of nationalistic pride in every country. That is how a country was able to gain, like Holst and Vaughan Williams had a certain nationalistic pride, and they created the English sound. They were a part of helping do that. So there's a part of that that's everywhere, but there's a sect of it that if it grows and festers too long of becoming toxic nationalistic, like toxic masculinity, that's how it turns bad and turns like completely in the opposite direction.
I think when nationalism becomes a problem is when, and I've said this multiple times through this, and this is the last time I'll say it because we're at the end of this. When the love of your country turns into something where you're like, this is the best place to be, then you're creating a superiority and inferiority. Like you're creating that system, okay? And so it's okay to be like, I am glad I'm blessed to be in this country, yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But when you take it to the next level of thinking, no, this is the best country to be in, and everyone else, any other country, they're nothing compared to what, and then it becomes this whole, well, now we're superior. We deserve more. Everyone should bow down to our ideals and morals because we are the best country. That's exactly how Hitler was like, let me just go ahead and move on up and build an army, build just a giant following of people who believed in that, who said, no, you're absolutely right. I do believe this is the best country ever. And because you have those views, I'm going to follow you, even if you say, let's go murder some people. That's exactly how that happened. And if you don't see any similarities in blind leadership when it comes to the Third Reich and here, open your eyes, because we saw it. We saw that.
I mean, just going to state this. The Germans at that time were the people who just woke up one day and invaded a whole country.
Woke up, and that's a whole other meaning of woke up and chose violence. That is.
They were like, I remember I heard a quote from somewhere on the World Wide Web, and it said, when I'm conducting German music, sometimes it gets angry, and I just got to say, why are you not playing it this angry? They literally woke up and invaded a country. So just remember that when there's like in that time period, historical meaning behind music is always important. If you're playing a German piece behind that time period and there's anger, just remember that. They woke up and invaded a country.
I think I was working on a quintet piece, and it was and our coach was like, hey, this is a Nazi march. Give it some more umph. And I was like, okay. I know what you meant by that, but I don't know if I can channel that. I don't know if I can channel how a Nazi would feel marching, behind Hitler. All right. But anyway, this chapter, it was interesting to see how Wagner was used and his music was used throughout whenever the film industry was becoming a bigger thing. And so I will now pass it over to Mr. Michael Shannon Brown.
Hello, class. How are you? Doing great, amazing. This is Professor Michael Shannon. I don't know why. I was like
NPR for a second. Like that's what it sounded like.
Also, when Michael thinks he's putting on his professor voice, he gets a lisp, and it's like, why?
Yeah. Have you ever heard really good professors? I'm just messing with you. Where's my cool jazz behind me? Anyway, the 15th chapter, which is called The Wound. And it's talking about Wagnerism after 1945. So my first question is, what happened in 1945?
The end of the war, child.
There it is.
I'm glad someone listened.
What'd you say?
I was like, this reminds me of when we were in music theory and I would know the answer to a question that I would get called on for, and I would lean over to Anthony and be like, hey, what's the answer to that?
Lauren, 1940. That's also the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war was over.
The war was over.
Done.
2 big bombs that killed thousands of people.
Lasting effects as well. Very bad. Anyways, so in my chapter, we talk about the new Beirut. So obviously, after 1945, the image of Wagner probably took an amazing hit. Very bad hit.
I'd say so.
I
would.
It's like, these gas prices, they really going up. It's like, I hate these gas prices. I'm sorry. I don't know why that came to my mind. Because my bank account is taking a hit every time I gotta fill up my tank. So his image took a big hit, but there was a renaissance in the 1950s of Beirut, which was quite unexpected because of all the post-war, what we were doing, how we were like trying to battle this image of Nazi and denazification and that whole process, which is completely flawed, by the way. And if you haven't read about denazification, please go read about it and please see the major flaw in it.
Isn't it kind of like how in the Civil War they were like, say you're wrong, say you were wrong. All right, now go play. Like when two people would get in trouble at recess and they were like, all right, you both have to apologize to each other, then you can keep playing.
I never apologized.
Ooh. Okay, the South. That is exactly the South.
I know Anthony never did either.
Huh?
Did you apologize when you got in trouble?
Why would I have to apologize? I didn't do that.
So yeah.
No.
Anthony, you were not an angel of a child.
I was. First of all, I never got in trouble at recess.
I got in trouble 3 times.
We can tell.
We all know that.
You ain't talking. But 2 of them were for talking too much. Anyways,
we know that. Come back. Okay.
Anyways, thank you. Don't send unless I've called for you.
Not Kenya Moore.
New Beirut was able to transform Wagner's image, and they were able to convince the world about the decisively breakup between the Nazi past. How they were able to convince people, I don't know. So now we're going to transition into the Holy German art. If you've been following our book, there was a whole nother section, maybe even a chapter on Holy German art. So, and what was interesting for this, I'm going to read a little bit, but for any German-speaking artist or writers who came to the fore in the post-war decades, Wagner was the god that failed. I'm going to repeat that again. The god that failed. So again, we're holding people up really, really high. And I want to read a little bit. So, Heinrich Boyle's 1950 story, Lohengrin's Death, set in the aftermath of the war, tells of an orphan boy who suffers a fatal fall while trying to steal coal from a moving train. He is named Lohengrin because he was born in 1933. Just when the first photographers of Hitler at the Beirut Wagner Festival started flooding all the illustrated weeklies. So, again, holding this man up so high, and he still failed. I just don't like the phrase "the God that failed." I'm still upset about this, but I want to ask y'all: how do you think Wagner was able to survive through Nazification and possibly denazification era and after?
Because they didn't take it seriously. I mean, that's really the only way I can put that. Like, if all that still was able to move on to this side, after the fact, that means nothing was done. And it's exactly, I can say the same thing for the Civil War, because people can still fly Confederate flags outside, even though that represented like a divide within our nation. Because that's exactly why I brought up the first time. You really didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. And on that, I think the same thing. Like, it's because nobody was held truly accountable.
No.
And with that, so when you don't hold anybody accountable, everything that kind of falls through the crack. And like, when you put it on a grand scheme of things, when you say Nazi, you mean really Adolf Hitler and his like group of henchmen.
Yep.
Those people. Nothing really happens to the regular citizens who followed them. And also, so those people fall through the cracks. Music falls through the cracks. All of the little things. If you're not the head of it, and if you're not on the first or second level under them, then you kind of get just like, don't do it again.
Yep.
So that's how it kind of went on.
In the whole process, I had a class recently, we talked about denazification. And the whole process was flawed because some people were pushed through, like a lot of musicians, was pushed through the process to get back to performing, to get back to making music and stuff, because that was apparently a part of the whole rebuilding of Germany.
Yes.
And all that stuff. So when you do that, when you push through anybody or push through any thing, and you, like, let's say you set this precedence, you don't follow the precedence is just stupid. It is automatically idiotic, and it should have never been said in the first place. So now I will transition to my lovely co-host, Anthony Morris.
Hey, and I had the last little couple pages, the postlude, and the postlude really kind of just sums up Alex Ross's kind of mindset of why this book even came to fruition. I highlighted some things, and I would just want to read it for you. So first, why am I talking about Wagner? Ross actually, at the age of 10, he actually borrowed Lohengrin from the public library. But on his first listening, he actually didn't like it. He said the lack of clear demarcations and the music, the sensation of drift, and produced in the 10-year-old self, not otherworldly bliss described by Baudelaire, but kind of auditory seasickness. I returned those records the next day. So, on his first listening at the age of 10, he was not amused. He was not amused. And I would have to say, I don't know about y'all, but at 10 years old, if I were to listen to the whole thing of Lohengrin, I probably would have returned it back the day of. Like, we taking this back right now.
I would have bought it.
I wouldn't have.
I would have never bought it. I would have looked at it. I honestly would not even looked at it. First of all, I mean, I think our generation was like the last generation that went to public libraries.
Yes.
I went maybe once or twice because I was not the big reader of the family. So I didn't even know they had records. I honestly thought the library was full of just books and books alone. Did not know they had movies. And
I knew they had DVDs. I didn't know they had like records and like CDs.
Honestly, I forgot that libraries existed.
Don't say that.
Books at home. My great grandmother gave me books like all the time.
Right,
I was like,
right.
I don't like reading books.
I only went to the library for projects.
For projects, I hate projects.
But he did come back to Wagner in his collegiate years. And he says, at the end of my college years, my life veered in somewhat of a chaotic, self-destructive direction. It was at this point, naturally, that I began to fall in love with Wagner. So I have a question for y'all is, do you think that the way your life is set or what you're going through at this point of your life, is that what make you kind of fall in love with artists like Wagner, who has this more intriguing type of personality, even though it's full of controversy?
Intriguing personality surrounded by controversy. That's like almost every artist that's out currently. I don't know. I've never been like a person who like, oh, she's weird, I like her. Like I that's never been the thing I'd go towards. Now I had my little emo phase. We all had to dip our toe into that sector, or maybe not. Okay, well, anyway, the cool kids, the cool kids,
immediately like
the cool kids did. Okay, and
No,
so
the cool kids was out here rapping Nicki Minaj going down the hallways in seventh
you the one
grade.
in detention, right? Okay, goodbye. Oh, shut it down. Shut it down. But anyway, like I've never like I know people were so like the whole Lady Gaga meet dress
Lady
thing,
Gaga,
that was really crazy. Like I think she's the biggest one we could say, and I don't really know if she's had a lot of like specifically controversy, but Miley Cyrus, the whole thing that happened when she flipped her image, going from Hannah Montana, Disney Channel to like twerking, cursing, everything else. You know, yeah, some people are drawn to that. I never. Those people have just been like I watch from afar, you know.
I just listen to music. I really don't care about their personality. Like I just listen to the music they produce. If I like their music, I like their music. I don't search after somebody like, oh, I like your story, I'm gonna like your music. No, that really just doesn't come into my mind at all.
Wow.
Well, Michael's also the person who doesn't like look up what the actors' names are. So
I don't.
I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, that's the whole point of watching. With like when I watch Bridgerton, I research every single character.
Absolutely not.
Everyone go watch Bridgerton.
I watched this movie last night from like the 60s, and I was like, oh my god, that was Spock from the new Star Trek, and that was Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, and that was this guy from AHS Hotel Season. So I'm
1960s?
Yeah, well, like the movie was set in the 1960s.
I was about to be like,
it came out like recently, but the movie was set in the 1960s, and I was like, oh, that's the guy. Here. I don't know actors' names; those are confused me.
Okay, well, so the rest of the postlude, it kind of explains Ross's obsession with Wagner. He tells the story of how Wagner was with him with relationships, taking them to different operas, and then the person who he came with ain't there no more, like a whole drama, give it real good tease, Then he says, for me, Wagner was more often brought revelations to my stupidity, my self-pity, and my absurdity, and in other words, my humanity. So he kind of just says Wagner was really kind of in and out of his personal life. And then one thing that, the two last things is this quote. To blame Wagner for the horrors committed in his wake is an inadequate response to historical complexity. It lets the rest of civilization off the hook. At the same time, to exonerate him is to ignore his insidious ramifications, which this is something I completely agree with. And I have been waiting this entire book for Alex to say this.
Yes. I didn't know going through that. I was like, I don't know.
I waited. This is on page 658. So 600 and no, it's on 659. I waited 659 pages for this two sentences. Is that to fully blame Wagner for everything is not, you can't do that because he is one man. But to completely let him off the hook is also, yeah, we can't do that either. So it's very this complexity. And I love how he said it lets the rest of civilization off the hook. Because you got to remember the little people who followed these big things, what happened to them? Because I'm pretty sure some of the people who followed Nazism in the 30s and 40s, they're the grandparents or great grandparents of people now, but they're living their lives. And that story you'll never hear because they are now ashamed of it. with that story.
Or ashamed, or just hiding.
And the last thing, it says, when we look at Wagner, we are gazing into a magnifying mirror of the soul of human species. And I took that, and I want to hear what y'all took about that. Wagner was very complex. He showed the goods, the bads, the uglies, and what is behind the door. Because everybody has something behind the door. Whether you said this or you've done this, everybody have those skeletons in the closet. And he just happened to be the person who we see the skeletons behind every closet that he had in his house. So what y'all think about that?
I agree that Wagner is a very good visual and symbol of humanity, in the sense of like someone who can create, you want to say, this amazing music that can speak to different people, but also have these, like you said, skeletons in their closet, these morals that are just immoral, beliefs that are just evil and just wrong. Now, is everyone to that extent? No. I don't think that we can say Wagner himself is humanity, or he is every human, because no, there were people who were in Nazi Germany who was like, yeah, this probably isn't right. Probably shouldn't be doing this stuff, And I think I'm very glad that we finally got this, this from Alex Ross saying, now, and I agree with this. It's like, yeah, a person who has these certain beliefs and morals rises to a point because of their following. So we can't just talk about the person. We also have to talk about the people, but we can't let the person just, walk off all willy-nilly. But yeah, it's complex. He is a complex person. If I've learned anything from that, is that Wagner is a complex man.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can you just summarize the question again before I think I have what I want to say, but I want to make sure.
Well, the quote says, when we look at Wagner, we are gazing into a magnifying mirror of the soul of the human species.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's what I thought you said that. I can see where he's coming from, because everybody has skeletons in their closet, whether how big, how small, whether how hideous, how not hideous. Like, some people's skeletons might be cheating on one test in their life because they're that kind of person. One people's skeletons might be Wagner skeletons. You know what I mean? So I can see where he's coming from and the connection he's drawing, because he's such an idealized figure. It's like, what if you were put up there and you had that many skeletons? How would you react? And how would you view yourself if you were put up to a magnifying glass and exposed for all of life? You know what I mean? And I'm like, from that point, I can get it. But also, not everybody has that many skeletons.
Or skeletons of that caliber. Okay.
And to finish the whole book off, it wouldn't be Alex Ross's book without somehow referencing silence. As we know, his best-selling book was called The Rest is Noise. And the last sentence says, the vision fades, the curtain falls, and we shuffle back in silence to the world as it is. So, meaning, once that ending cue is gone, the curtain is let down, the people who came to experience something goes back to the world. And might be changed, might not be, but they go back to the world that they were existing in before the performance.
We have come to the end of Alex Ross's Wagnerism. Yeah, let's just for the people, just a flashback to the first episode. Like, I just can't even believe that we took this on, and I'm proud of us. Okay, we should be proud of ourselves for taking on a monster of a book, and it was such a new book, really, where people haven't had a chance to write any things about it, or if we took a book that's been out for 100 years. We could find many sources online, of it, but this is brand new. And okay, so now we get to go back and think about what we thought from the beginning. If we were going to think we're going to be completely different, yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I think if anything, I have really understood how dangerous hero worship is, and putting someone on that high of a pedestal is, especially when, like we say, these people have these skeletons in their closet. So should we really be putting these people up who, the artistry, but then they were racist, or they were, sexist, or homophobic? Like, well, no. The answer is no. The answer is no.
I'm the exact same. Like I said, it took until 659 to reveal the response that I wanted this whole book to tell me.
Yes.
Homie was a complex man. It goes in and out. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned from the book, is that he is a very complex person.
Was Wagner a Gemini? Let me look this up.
He was born May 13th, March something. I don't know. Hold on. It's right here in the back of the book. If y'all want to read 600, he was born May 22nd, 1813.
May 22nd, Zodiac. He's a Gemini. Oh my God. Wagner's a Gemini.
What?
Wagner is actually a Gemini. This is crazy, okay? Like, literally, the whole thing with Geminis is like the whole, the two-faced complex and all these things. And the fact that this man actually was a Gemini blows my mind. Goodbye. Good night, everyone.
I'm so done.
And on that, can we say much more?
I think, honestly, we could have wrapped this entire book club series up with our Saga Gemini. Like that's
there
wow.
we go. If y'all haven't read the book, please read the book. It is definitely a good old Laffy Taffy, one of them very strong Laffy Taffys to get through. But it'll give you some more knowledge.
Like a Laffy Taffy from the 70s that you found in your great grandmother's brief.
Yeah, you got I hope you got strong teeth. So,
you need metal.
Yes, but it's been a great journey, and I'm glad we got to be on the journey together and reading this book. I'm glad that all of you have been listening to the podcast. You have been tuning in and joining the journey with us. We definitely are not done with our podcast. We have a lot more coming at you. So please stay tuned. We love you. We would love to keep hearing from you. So all the links are down below. Please reach out to us and tell us what you want to see more on the podcast. So it was great seeing everybody. Bye.